Hello, guys. This is our first class from week 5. And the topic that we're going to cover today is the World Trade Organization. So the main objective for this class is to understand international institutions that support the trade liberalization. Why? Because there is a fact. All markets rest on political structure. And we have to understand that the world trade has grown so rapidly over the last 70 years because an international political structure, the World Trade Organization, that we're going to call it WTO, and its predecessor, the General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, has supported and encouraged such growth. So in this chapter, we are going to provide a broad overview of the WTO course components. And first, we are going to examine how the global distribution of power shaped the creation and evolution of international trade system. Then we're going to explore some contemporary challenges to the WTO, focusing on the rise of developing countries as a powerful bloc within the organization and the rise of civil society groups as a powerful critiques of the organization from the outside. And finally, we're going to conclude by examining regional trade agreements, considering by many, the greatest current challenge to the WTO. So today's plan is going to, we're going to divide the chapter in three main issues. The first one is try to define and analyze the World Trade Organization. Then we are going to talk about the evolving World Trade Organization, the new direction and new challenges that the WTO is facing nowadays. And finally, we're going to talk about the greatest challenge, which is the regional trade agreements and the World Trade Organization. So let's begin. I would like to talk about the important aspect of one of the most important aspects of international trade that has shaped our global economic landscape for several decades. I will be discussing the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, commonly known as GATT, and its significant role in international trade relations between 1947 and 1994. Furthermore, I will highlight the transition of GATT into the World Trade Organization in 1995 and the continuation of its crucial function. The seeds of international trade cooperation were sown in the aftermath of World War II, when nations realized the need for a framework to promote open and fair trade practices. In 1947, the GATT was established as a provisional agreement to facilitate trade liberalization and reduce barriers to commerce among nations. Its primary objective was to promote economic growth, development, and prosperity by addressing restrictive trade policies such as tariff, quotas, and subsidies. Initially, the concept of International Trade Organization, ITO, was discussed at the Bretton Woods Conference in 1944, alongside the creation of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. The ITO's charter was drafted in 1948, envisioning a comprehensive organization that would oversee global trade rules. However, the United States Congress failed to approve the ITO charter, leading to the demise of the proposed organization. The International Trade Organization failed for several reasons. Here are the main factors that contributed to its failure. The first one is the lack of U.S. congressional approval. One of the primary reasons for the ITO's failure was the failure of the United States Congress to approve its charter. The ITO charter, which was drafted in 1948, required ratification by the members' countries' legislatures. However, the U.S. Congress, concerned about potential loss of sovereignty and the organization decision-making powers, did not approve the charter. Without the participation of the United States, the world's largest economy at the time, the ITO's was severely compromised. The second reason is opposition from a special interest group. The ITO faced opposition from various special interest groups, particularly in the United States. Industries and labor unions that fear increased international competition and the potential impact on domestic jobs exert pressure on lawmakers to reject the ITO. The opposition made it difficult for political leaders to gain support for the organization and hindered its chances of success. The third reason is Cold War geopolitical tensions. The geopolitical landscape during the Cold War era also had an impact on the ITO's failure. The rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, along with their respective allies, created a hostile atmosphere that hindered cooperation on international economic matters. The ideological division and distrust between these global powers made it difficult to find common ground on trade policies and impede progress towards a multilateral trade organization. And finally, we can talk about the shift in priorities. Over time, the focus of international economic cooperation shifted from trade liberalization to other issues, such as security, development, and regional integration. As the global agenda evolved, the urgency and political will to establish a comprehensive international trade organization waned. Members countries started to pursue trade liberalization through other means, such as regional trade agreements and bilateral negotiation, further diminishing the relevance of the ITO. During the same period, GATT continued to evolve, starting with just 15 countries, and it gradually expanded its membership and became an essential platform for trade negotiation and dispute resolution. On January 1st, in 1948, the GATT was officially signed by 23 countries, marking the beginning of its journey toward fostering international trade cooperation. Throughout its existence, GATT played a crucial role in promoting trade liberalization and established a rule-based system for international commerce. It provided a forum for negotiation among member countries where they could address trade barriers and strive for mutually beneficial agreements. GATT's principles, such as a most favored nation treatment and non-discrimination, form a foundation for fair and equitable trade practices. However, as the world continued to change, it became evident that a more comprehensive and institutionalized framework was needed to address emerging challenges in the global economy. Hence, in 1995, the GATT was folded into a newly established World Trade Organization, WTO. The WTO, building upon the achievements of GATT and expanded its scope to include services, intellectual property, and agricultural trade. The WTO, with its broader mandate, has carried forward the essential functions of GATT and has become the principal global organization governing international trade relations. It provides a platform for members' countries to negotiate trade agreements, resolve disputes, and ensure the smooth flows of goods and services across borders. The WTO's dispute settlement mechanism has been instrumental in resolving trade conflicts and maintaining a rules-based trading system. In conclusion, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade played a pivotal role between 1947 and 1994, providing the foundation for international trade cooperation and the reduction of trade barriers. Although the proposed International Trade Organization did not materialize, the GATT successfully paved the way for the establishment of the World Trade Organization in 1995. The WTO continues to play a vital role in fostering global economic growth, promoting fair trade practices, and addressing the challenges of the modern global economy. However, the establishment of the World Trade Organization after the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade can be attributed to several reasons. The first one is the need for a broader institutional framework. GATT, although successful in facilitating trade negotiation and reducing tariffs, had limitations. It primarily focused on the trade in goods and did not addressing emerging areas such as services, intellectual property rights, and investment. As the global economy evolved, there was a growing recognition that a more comprehensive and institutionalized frameworks were required to address these new challenges effectively. The second reason is the expansion of trade issues. The scope of international trade expanded beyond traditional goods trades. Services such as banking, telecommunication, and transportation became increasingly important for economies. Moreover, issues like intellectual property rights, agricultural subsidies, and trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights gained prominence. The GATT's limited mandate and mechanisms were insufficient to effectively address these complex and multifaceted issues. The third reason is the need for a more effective dispute settlement mechanism. GATT's dispute settlement mechanism was less formal and lacked binding enforcement measures. Disputes could become protracted and resolutions were not always enforceable. The desire for a more robust and efficient dispute settlement system that could effectively enforce trade rules and settle disputes in a timely manner became a driving force behind the establishment of the WTO. The fourth reason was the institutionalizing trade governance. GATT operated as a provisional agreement without a permanent institutional structure. The establishment of the WTO aimed to institutionalize and strengthen the multilateral trade system. It sought to create a permanent organization that would serve as a platform for member countries to negotiate trade agreements, set rules, and ensure their effective implementation. And finally, the fifth argument was strengthening developing country participation. The creation of the WTO aimed to address concerns about developing countries' limited participation and influence in international trade organizations. The WTO provides a more inclusive and democratic platform where all member countries, regardless of their size or economic power, had a voice in shaping global trade rules. So what is the WTO? The WTO is not just an organization. It is an international political system that works to ensure fair and balanced trade relations between nations. It operates on three essential components: a set of principles and rules. Second, an intergovernmental bargaining process. And third, a dispute settlement mechanism. The WTO operates on a set of rules that constrains governments' ability to restrict the flows of goods into their countries and encourage the export of domestic goods to foreign markets. These rules have been created and can be amended through intergovernmental bargaining, which is the primary decision-making process of the WTO. To liberalize trade, government must modify policies that hinder the cross-border movement of goods and services. These policies include tariffs, which are taxes imposed on foreign goods entering a country. Additionally, a wide range of non-tariff barriers, such as a healthy and safety regulation and government purchasing practices, also contribute to trade restriction. Governments organize their negotiation in bargaining rounds, each with a specific starting and target date for conclusion. Over the years, multiple rounds have taken place, with the Doha round initiated in 2001, still ongoing as of today. As a member of the WTO, a country is required to accept common rules that constrain its action in international trade. The rules established through intergovernmental bargaining provide a framework of law for international trade relations, bringing the rule of law into the global trading system. This ensures a level playing field and promotes fairness among member countries. Should a WTO member violate the established rules, the WTO's dispute settlement mechanism comes into play. This mechanism ensures compliance by assisting governments in resolving disputes and authorizing appropriate action in cases of non-compliance. An independent quasi-judicial tribunal investigates the facts and relevant WTO rules when a dispute arises and reaches a finding. If a government is found to be in violation, it is required to alter the offending policy or compensate the affected country or countries. At the core of the WTO lie two fundamental principles: market liberalism and non-discriminatory principle. Market liberalism provides the economic rationale for the trade system, asserting that an open and liberal international trade system raises the world's standard of living. It emphasized that even every country, regardless of its wealth, benefits from trade and experiences a higher standard of living through engagement in international trade. The non-discrimination principle ensures that each WTO member faces equal opportunities to trade with others. It takes two specific forms within the WTO. The first is the most favored nation, or MFN treatment, which prohibits governments from using trade policies to grant special advantages to some countries while excluding others. In simpler terms, it requires each WTO member to treat all other members equally. For instance, if the United States reduces tariffs on goods imported from Brazil, it must extend the same tariff rates to all other WTO members. The second form is national treatment, which prohibits governments from using taxes, regulation, and other domestic policies to favor domestic firms over foreign firms. Once foreign and domestic version of the same product, known as like products, enter the domestic market, they must be treated identically. This ensures that foreign firms are not in a disadvantaged position compared to their domestic counterparts. In conclusion, the World Trade Organization is an international political system that regulates national trade policies based on rules established through intergovernmental bargaining. These rules promote market liberalism and non-discriminatory treatments, ensuring a fair and level playing field for international trade. The WTO's dispute settlement mechanism ensures compliance with the established rules and provides a platform for resolving disputes among member countries. By upholding these principles, the WTO strives to create an open, equitable, and prosperous global trading system. However, I would like to draw your attention to an important aspect of the WTO that deals with exception to the most favored nation principle, or the MFN. While the MFN principle requires each WTO member to treat all others equally, there are certain exemptions that allow from deviations from this principle in specific circumstances. One of the most significant exemptions to the MFN principle involves regional trade arrangements, or RTAs. Governments are permitted to depart from MFN if they form a free trade area or custom union with other nations. These arrangements are aimed to promoting deeper economic integration among participant countries and fostering regional cooperation. A notable example is the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, which has allowed goods produced in Mexico to enter the United States duty-free, while the United States imposes tariffs on the same goods imported from other countries outside the agreement. Another exemption to the MFN principle is the Generalized System of Preferences, or GSP. Enacted in the late 60s, the GSP permits advanced industrialized countries to apply lower tariffs to imports from developing countries compared to tariffs imposed on the same goods coming from another advanced industrialized country. This system recognizes the different levels of development among nations and aims to provide preferential treatment to developing countries, assisting them in their economic growth and integration into the global trading system. These exemptions acknowledge the unique circumstances and objective of regional trade arrangements and the need to support the development efforts of less economically advanced nations. By allowing for these exemptions, the WTO recognizes the importance of flexibility in trade policies while still upholding the principles of fairness and non-discrimination. It is crucial to know that these exemptions are carefully designed and regulated within the framework of the WTO. They are not intended to undermine the principles of free and fair trade, but rather to accommodate the specific regional and developmental needs. The ultimate goal remains the promotion of global economic prosperity and sustainable development. In conclusion, the WTO allows for certain exemptions to the MFN principle through regional trade arrangements and the generalized system of preferences. These exemptions recognize the importance of regional integration and developmental supports for less economical advanced nations. They serve as a mechanism to foster cooperation, economic growth, and stability in the global trading system. In addition, I want to shed light on an essential aspect of the the World Trade Organization, which is the intergovernmental bargaining process. This process serves as the primary decision-making mechanism within the WTO and involves negotiations among governments to establish rules that promote the liberalization of trade and indirectly support this overarching goal. So, what exactly do governments bargain over in these negotiations? They discuss a wide range of trade-related issues that directly impact the flow of goods and services across borders. One crucial area of focus is tariffs, which are taxes imposed by governments on foreign goods entering their respective countries. By negotiating tariff reductions, governments aim to facilitate the movements of goods and promote economic integration. In addition to tariffs, governments also address non-tariff barriers during these negotiations. Non-tariff barriers encompass a variety of measures that can hinder trade flows. These barriers include health and safety regulation, environmental standards, government purchasing practice, quotas, bans, rules of origin, packaging and labeling condition, as well as complex regulatory environments and licensing requirements. Addressing these barriers, it's crucial to ensure fair and equitable access to markets and to foster a level playing field for businesses. The intergovernmental bargaining process also covers other critical trade issues, such as anti-dumping measures, intellectual property rights, textiles, agriculture, services, government interventions, e-commerce, and more. These topics reflect the diverse and complex nature of international trade and highlight the comprehensive scope of negotiation within the WTO. Rather than engaging in continuous negotiations, governments organize their discussions into bargaining rounds. Each round has a defined starting date and a target date for conclusion. Over the years, the WTO has successfully concluded 8 bargaining rounds, within a 9th round known as the Doha round initiated in 2001. While early rounds were typically concluded relatively quickly, there has been a trend towards multi-year negotiation in recent decades. The Doha round, launched with the goal of concluding by late 2005, demonstrates the challenges of reaching consensus among the participating governments. As of late 2017, an agreement remains elusive. This example emphasizes the complexities involved in the negotiation process as governments grapple with diverging interests, varying levels of development, and evolving global economic dynamics. The intergovernmental bargaining process is a cornerstone of the WTO, providing a platform for governments to collectively shape and revise international trade rules. By engaging in negotiation and altering policies that restrict cross-border trade, governments contribute to the liberalization of trade and the promotion of global economic growth. In conclusion, the intergovernmental bargaining process within the WTO plays a pivotal role in establishing rules that govern international trade. Through negotiations, governments address a wide array of trade-related issues, including tariffs, non-tariff barriers, anti-dumping measures, intellectual property rights, and various sector-specific concerns. While negotiations can be complex and protracted, they are essential for creating a fair and open global trade system. Likewise, I want to emphasize the importance of the dispute settlement mechanism within the WTO. This mechanism serves as a vital tool for ensuring compliance with the established rules and regulations, thereby promoting fairness and stability in international trade relations. Imagine trying to tie your hands without a rope. It seems impossible, doesn't it? Similarly, in the realm of international trade, commitments and enforcements are crucial aspects that prevent countries from disregarding their obligations. The dispute settlement mechanism plays a key role in addressing these concerns. For countries that are members of the WTO, the rules established through intergovernmental bargaining serves as a framework of law for their international trade relations. By participating in the WTO, governments voluntarily accept these common rules, which constrain their actions and promote a level playing field. Through this multilateral trade system, the rule of law is brought into international trade relations, ensuring fairness and predictability. However, the reality is that individual compliance with established rules is not always guaranteed. Without an effective mechanism in place, governments may be tempted to disregard their commitments without facing any consequences. This is where the WTO's dispute settlement mechanism steps in. The dispute settlement mechanism ensures compliance by providing a structured process for governments to resolve their disputes. It acts as a neutral platform, helping to mediate and adjudicate conflicts that arise between members' countries. By doing so, it prevents trade disputes from escalating into larger conflicts that could disrupt global trade flows. Moreover, the dispute settlement mechanism authorizes punishment in the event of non-compliance. It functions through an independent quasi-judicial tribunal that investigates the facts and relevant WTO rules whenever a dispute is initiated. This impartial tribunal examines the evidence and reaches a finding based on the merits of the case. When the government is found to be in violation of its WTO obligation, it is required to alter the offending policy or provide compensation to the country or countries that have been harmed. This ensures that the rules established through intergovernmental bargaining are upheld and that the injured parties receive appropriate redress. By providing a transparent and enforceable framework for resolving disputes, the WTO's dispute settlement mechanism instills confidence in the global trading system. It discourages countries from engaging in unilateral action that could undermine the stability and predictability of international trade. It is important to remember that the dispute settlement mechanism serves not only as a means of resolving conflicts, but also as a deterrent against non-compliance. If governments believe that they could disregard WTO rules with impunity, the incentive to comply would diminish, eroding the effectiveness of the system. In conclusion, the dispute settlement mechanism of the WTO plays a vital role in promoting compliance with established trade rules. By providing an impartial forum for dispute resolution and authorizing appropriate punishment for non-compliance, this mechanism ensures that the commitments made by members' countries are upheld. It fosters a rules-based international trade system that encourages fair competition, and mutual trust among nations. This is the second part of the lecture, which is the evolving World Trade Organization, new directions and new challenges. So I want to discuss the significant changes that have occurred within the WTO in recent years and the challenges that arise as a result. While the core principles and procedures of the trade system have remained stable for approximately 70 years, two key changes have emerged and are shaping the future of international trade. Firstly, the emergence of developing countries as a powerful bloc within the organization has transformed the dynamics of negotiations. Since 1985, the WTO has experienced a dramatic increase in membership, with over 70 countries joining and bringing the total to 164 countries as of October 2017. This expansion reflects the shifting focus of emerging market countries towards international trade. However, it is important to note that the previous trade agreement, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, primarily represented the interests of developed countries, such as the United States, the European Union, and Japan. Consequently, negotiations mainly center on areas of interest of these nations, neglecting liberalization in sectors that were crucial for developing countries. As a result, industries in which developed countries had a relatively advantage, particularly capital-intensive manufacturing, were liberalized, while labor-intensive industries and farming remained protected. This disparity created an imbalance in the benefits derived from international trade. In response to these inequities, emerging markets countries became increasingly focused on development through exports and recognized the importance of market access provided by the WTO. They demanded greater attention to the issues they deemed important during the launch of the Doha round of negotiation in 1999, leading to a shift in the bargaining power within the WTO. The second major change is the emergence of non-governmental organizations, or NGOs, as a powerful force outside the organization. These NGOs have mobilized in opposition to what they perceive as unwelcome constraints imposed by the new WTO rules, particularly concerning consumer and environmental interest. While WTO rules do not prevent governments from protecting consumers or the environment, NGOs have sought to ensure that these interests receive appropriate attention. However, the growing influence of NGOs has raised questions about the WTO's decision-making procedures and its relevance in the current global landscape. Effectiveness and legitimacy are two dimensions that require careful consideration. In terms of effectiveness, the challenge lies in reaching meaningful trade liberalization agreements among 164 governments at different stages of economic development. The inability to achieve a broad agreement during the Doha round exemplifies the limitations of consensus-based bargaining among such a diverse group of states. This highlights the need for reforms that streamline the negotiation process and limiting the number of active participants. Regarding legitimacy, concerns arise about negotiating rules that constrain national regulations without the full participation of civil society. Opening the WTO process to NGOs would ensure that business interests are balanced against other social concerns. While this will increase inclusivity, it will also make it more difficult to reach consensus within the organization. In conclusion, the WTO is facing a transformative period due to the rise of developing countries as a powerful bloc and the growing influence of NGOs outside the organization. The need for reforms to enhance effectiveness and legitimacy has become apparent. Finding a balance between The diverse interests of member countries and civil society is essential to ensure the WTO's continued relevance in the ever-evolving global trade landscape. And finally, we are going to talk about the regional trade agreements. So I want to draw your attention to a significant phenomenon that has gained appeal as a response to the limitation of the World Trade Organization, which is regionalism. Regional trade arrangements, or RTAs, have emerged as an alternative, presenting both opportunities and challenges to the existing global trade system. So what exactly is a regional trade arrangement? It is a trade agreement between two or more countries, typically located in the same region, where each country offers preferential market access to the others. There are two primary forms of RTAs: free trade areas and custom unions. In a free trade area, such as the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, participating governments eliminate tariffs on each other's goods while retaining independent tariffs on goods from non-members. On the other hand, a custom union, like the European Union, eliminates tariffs on trade among members' countries and imposes a common external tariff on goods entering the union from non-members. However, it is important to recognize that RTAs are inherently discriminatory because they provide tariff-free access to some countries while excluding others. The General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade permits countries to form RTAs as long as the level of protection imposed against non-members is no higher than the pre-existing level. As of now, there are around 279 operational RTAs, with over half of them being bilateral agreements. RTAs have emerged in three distinct waves. The first wave began in 1950s and aimed to promote economic cooperation within specific regions, fostering peace and rapid economic development. Examples include the original European Economic Community and the Latin American Free Trade Area. The second wave coincide with trade policy reforms in Eastern and Central Europe and other developing countries. Governments in these regions sought new trade arrangement and access to Western European markets, leading to numerous agreements with neighboring countries and the EU, or the European Union. The third wave, starting around 2008, is closely associated with the so-called mega-regional agreements. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, negotiated between the US and the EU, and the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, involving 13 states in Asia and the Americas, exemplify this wave. These agreements aim to enhance cooperation on technical barriers to trade, services, intellectual property protection, and foreign investment, going beyond the scope of the WTO. And here we can make an important question, which is, why have RTAs proliferated, especially since 1990s? Scholars offer several explanations. Some suggest that countries seek secure access to important trading partners' markets. Others argue that governments use RTAs to signal a commitment to economic reform and maintain open markets. Additionally, countries may form RTAs to increase their bargaining power in multilateral trade negotiations by pulling together small economies to offer a large market to trade partners. And finally, the impasse in the Doha round of negotiation have prompted states to explore alternative paths to pursue their trade policy goals. Economists analyze the consequences of RTAs as trade creation and trade diversion. Trade creation occurs as tariffs are reduced, stimulating the increased trade among member countries. However, trade diversion arises when countries redirect trade away from non-member countries towards the preferential partners within the RTA. In conclusion, regionalism exemplified by the proliferation of RTAs presents both opportunities and challenges to the WTO system. While RTIs offer benefits such as preferential market access and increased bargaining power, they also pose challenges due to their discriminatory nature. As we navigate this evolving landscape, it is crucial to strike a balance between regional integration and the pursuit of a fair and inclusive global trade system. So, okay, guys, this is the ending of this class. If you have questions or comments, don't forget to send me an email or a message through Canvas, and I will be gladly to answer you. So see you in our last class. Bye.